My name is Harvey Wasserman. I'm the senior editor of Columbus Free Press and freepress.org. We are responsible for breaking most of the major stories that came out of Ohio 2004 and the theft of the election that year. We are back here 8 years later with even more concerns about the integrity of the ballot, especially of the electronic ballot. We are in the process, as we speak, of filing a federal lawsuit in Columbus, Ohio, asking for the removal of some software that has been installed into the computer system. So we will go into greater detail, computer vote counting systems. We'll go into greater detail as we proceed with this press conference. We are very, very privileged to have some very important people with us today, starting with Jill Stein, the nominee for the presidency of the United States from the Green Party of the United States. We have Lori Grace with us. Lori, what's the name of your organization?
The Institute for American Democracy and Election Integrity.
Okay, and Sarah Manski from
No More Stolen Elections.
No More Stolen Elections, and Clint Curtis. Clint is one of the most important of all the whistleblowers on electronic vote theft and the rigging of electronic voting machines. He was with Tom Feeney, Congressman Tom Feeney, no longer Congressman Tom Feeney, from Florida, and was one of the very first important computer programmers to come forward and blow the whistle on manipulation of the electronic vote count. So this is a serious conference with a very substantial amount of important substance to it. And without further ado, the speaking order will actually be Jill Stein, our presidential candidate, will lead. I will follow with Sarah, and then Clint, and then Lori Grace will wrap it up for us. And we will then have Bob Fitrakis on Skype, hopefully from Columbus, as they're in the process of filing this federal lawsuit.
And he will call when he becomes available, and we'll just take him at that time.
Great. So as we speak, they are furiously making paper copies. They have permission to file manually with the federal court, and they will do so as in the course of this press conference. So without further ado, Jill Stein, our candidate for president from the Green Party of the United States.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Thank you to all our panelists, and thanks so much to the press for coming out to hear about this very important issue. And we are here to stand up for the integrity of the vote, to stand up for the right of American citizens to have their vote counted. We are a nation, a democratic nation, a democracy in which we must have a system of one person, one vote, not $1, one vote. And we're focusing today on real concerns that have been raised about electronic tampering with the vote, particularly in Ohio, but questions are being raised really all over the country. Before going into that, I just want to mention that even before getting to this 11th hour concern about electronic tampering, that our election system is highly compromised much further upstream from the money in politics, from the incredible structural barriers to actually getting on the ballot that have required third-party campaigns like mine to spend about 80% of our time, resources, and staff just getting on the ballot in order to bring our viewpoint to the American public. These are hurdles that the major parties who wrote the rules have been exempted from, but which any opposition party is then required to deal with, which frankly they are quite prohibitive. And while opposition parties are not illegal in this country, in effect they are virtually impossible because of the structural barriers to our participation. Likewise, we are essentially locked out of media coverage, locked out of debates by the Commission on Presidential Debates. So there are a whole variety of reforms that we call for, everything from public financing of elections to equal ballot access. We call for universal hand-counted paper ballots. We call for universal registration, automatic registration. We call for a constitutional right to vote so that states cannot be illegitimately establishing barriers to the vote, establishing prohibitive voter ID processes, establishing techniques for purging large groups of voters from the election rolls. We also call for abolition of the Electoral College and, as I mentioned before, replacing the Commission on Presidential Debates. We also call for nonpartisan election commissions, as opposed to the election commissions now, which are headed by operatives for the political party and make it quite possible and easy to tamper with the vote. And along those lines, I should mention also that we call for an end to electronic voting, and in the meantime for public scrutiny and transparency in the use of any software, so that the counting of our votes is not taking place by private companies in a secret process hidden from public view. This is a setup for fraud, if there ever was one. So specifically, we're here today because, as Harvey mentioned, a case is now being filed by Bob Fitrakis, a Green Party candidate for Congress in Ohio. And that case, Harvey will provide you the details, but it focuses on the use of new software for the optical scanners, the ESNS machines. And this new software is untested and uncertified and in violation of federal and state election laws. And it establishes basically an open door to fraud and should not be used in this election. This is a case of a private company using secret software that has not been certified. So specifically, my campaign is calling for the impounding of all election results. Election law actually requires the records to be kept, but in 2004 we know that those records were not kept by some 55 or 56 of the 88 counties in Ohio. So in order to ensure that the law is upheld, we are now calling for the impounding of those election records, and then we are calling for a hand count of the paper record of these elections, as well as an independent public review of the electronic counts for which there is no paper trail. And there are obviously steep costs regrettably, that have been imposed on taking these steps to safeguard our vote. We should have these, our votes should be safeguarded as a matter of law. It's a sad commentary on our election system that we, the voters, are required to spend an inordinate amount of money in order to safeguard our vote. But we are calling for these safeguards in any event, and we'll do the best that our campaign can do to ensure that all of these steps are taken. And in addition, we call on the other presidential candidates to join me in pledging not to concede the vote until these steps have been taken and there has been a reliable and full counting of every vote.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jill. I'm going to fill in now on what's gone on in Ohio, what's happening now. This election protection movement got a birth of sorts in Ohio 2004. We came to Washington from Columbus with several busloads of people after John Kerry conceded prematurely the vote count in Ohio. As we all know, we have an electoral college that has allowed the person who comes in second in the election to become the President of the United States. This has happened in 1800, 1824, 1876, 1888, and of course in the year 2000. We continue to believe that John Kerry was the rightful winner in 2004, as was Al Gore in the year 2000. So one of the reasons we have such an infrastructure in Ohio is, of course, no Republican has won the White House without carrying Ohio. Only a couple of Democrats have done it, and most of the media now is claiming that Ohio has about a 50% chance of deciding this election. We are very disturbed, even 8 years after a highly controversial outcome in Ohio, that there are irregularities with the software in the voting machines that will be counting the election, counting the apparent votes in Ohio. Tomorrow I will be voting in the town of Bexley, Ohio. I am registered as a monitor to look into the precinct and see who comes into so-called service or recalibrate or do other things, let's say, to the electronic voting machines in my precinct. And I am authorized to do that as a Green Party voter. We are hoping to have other people do it around the state, but we do not have a comprehensive network that will be able to give us a full and fair review of what the votes that are counted tomorrow in the state that is likely to determine the outcome of this presidential election. Now, in 2004, as Jill mentioned, we won a federal lawsuit. We had a federal injunction in the King Lincoln Bronzeville lawsuit, federal lawsuit, of which I was a plaintiff, requiring that the 88 county boards of elections in Ohio retain all records from the 2004 election. And we had a new Secretary of State come in, Jennifer Brunner, and she set up a repository in Columbus. And when she went to collect the records from the 88 counties as mandated by federal law, we found that 56 of the 88 counties had destroyed their ballot records and other electronic files that would have allowed us to have a recount. And as a result, no one was prosecuted for the destruction of these records. We got excuses from various county boards. One said that a coffee urn tipped over and spilled on their election records. One said that they were mistakenly sent out with the recycling. One said there was a flood. It was the biggest dog ate my homework series of excuses that we've heard. So now we face a similar situation, perhaps even worse, in 2012. We have a company called Hart Intercivic, which is counting the ballots in Hamilton County, which has about 800,000 people in Cincinnati, home in Cincinnati, and a small county in northern Ohio. Hart Intercivic is owned, the majority shares are owned by the HIG Investment Group. A number of the principals in the HIG Investment Group are prominent fundraisers and functionaries in the Romney campaign. The Romney family itself is our founding members and major investors in a company called Solamere, S-O-L-A-M-E-R-E. Solamere has major investments in the HIG Group, Capital Group, which owns the controlling shares of the Hart Intercivic voting machine company. Now, the family claims that its investments in HIG Capital are segregated from the voting machine company. Well, we can talk more about that later on, but the reality is that the HIG machines, the company owns Hart Intercivic, which will be counting ballots, which could decide the presidency of the United States. Quite likely, actually, if Ohio is in fact a turning point in this election, and it's a close election, then certainly there will be enough ballots cast in Hamilton County to make that distinction. Now, we also to make that decision. Actually, we are also filing today. Bob Fitrakis is in the process of walking the suit into the federal court about a computer patch that's been put on the software, which on ES&S machines, which, by the way, also owned by prominent Republicans, which will allow access to the electronic vote count, which could, in fact, affect the outcome of the election. And we have Clint Curtis, a computer expert, brought in who will comment on that possibility. It's important to note that the major electronic voting machines around companies around the United States, Dominion, Hart Intercivic, ES&S, Sequoia, and one called Triad, which is prominent in Ohio, are owned by prominent Republican families. We are in the process of conducting a public election on privately owned machines. The courts have ruled that the software in these machines, even though counties or states may own these machines, bought with federal money, own the hardware, that the software itself is proprietary and is not subject to public review. This is an astonishing situation. Jill Stein and the Green Party are calling for the impoundment of the results, but the reality, and it's absolutely essential that that happen, but the reality is at this point in time, under federal law, the public will not be able to fully scrutinize the electronic vote count. And so millions and millions of Americans have been casting votes, will especially cast them tomorrow on electronic voting machines, which essentially will go into some black box netherworld, and we will be denied a comprehensive vote count. This is not an acceptable situation in a country that calls itself a democracy. Sweden, Germany, Japan, Canada, and Switzerland all conduct their balloting on paper ballots. They are hand counted. They're done by midnight. In Germany, the exit polls have agreed with the official vote counts to within 0.1% of the vote count. Ireland had electronic voting machines and has just gotten rid of them and reverted to paper ballots. I am hoping that within 4 years, at the brink of our next presidential election in this country, that we will be talking to you about a country that will be casting its votes entirely on hand-counted paper ballots. That's the purpose of this exercise. We are glad the Green Party has taken a lead on this, and it's an agenda item which could not be more important to the survival of our democracy in this country, or what's left of it. We also, of course, as Jill has said, want money out of politics. We want a 4-day voting weekend, a national holiday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, in which all the students get out of college and high school and they run the polls and they count the ballots. And universal automatic voter registration. When you turn 18, if you're a citizen, you are automatically registered to vote. No more of this voter registration drives. And I should note in passing also, I'm done here, is that one of the most disturbing things we've seen occurring in this election season is the systematic disenfranchisement of millions of Americans, not merely by the photo ID and people are saying, well, the photo ID requirement is being overturned by the courts, therefore it's not significant. We expect throughout the country that partisan voter registration personnel and people in the polls will falsely tell people that they are still required to have a photo ID. And we expect this to happen. We've seen many other shenanigans designed to restrict the franchise. We call it the Jim/Juan Crow movement by the GOP to prevent people of color from voting. I will say finally that one of our complaints on the electronic voting machines, we have seen touchscreen machines where people in 2004 pushed John Kerry and George Bush lit up. I thought this proved that the Republicans had a sense of humor. But we saw this in 7 precincts in northeastern Ohio. We are just now hearing complaints from the Republicans that in Colorado, people who are pushing Barack Obama are pushing Mitt Romney are seeing Barack Obama light up. So our gripe here, we are obviously not here stumping for Barack Obama. Our purpose is to make this a democracy where the ballot will count. If the Republicans can steal an election from the Democrats, and as they have done in 2000, 2004, if the Democrats can steal elections from the Republicans, as it did throughout the South in the years after the Civil War, then they can both steal the elections from third-party candidates and organizations that really could make a difference in this country. And so as long as our ballot is compromised electronically and otherwise, we will not have meaningful change through the electoral process, and that's why we're here. Next, thankfully, we have Sarah Manski from the Green Party, and please tell us your organization.
I'm Sarah Manski. I'm with No More Stolen Elections, which is a project of the Liberty Tree Foundation. No More Stolen Elections is a nonpartisan campaign to protect the voting rights and election integrity, and is dedicated to the idea that votes belong to the voters and not political parties. Votes belong to the people and not political parties. That's really important. Voters need to be able to self-organize and respond in case of contested elections to safeguard their right to vote because if the politicians have their say, they will usually do what's politically expedient rather than what they should do on principle. And so Liberty Tree Foundation started this project after what happened in Florida. And in 2004, we coordinated voter mobilizations in over 80 communities around the country. And that ended up supporting the Ohio recount. In 2008, even though the election wasn't very close, there were reports of voter assemblies in over 40 communities, and certainly many reports of election fraud in the United States. In 2011, No More Stolen Elections was responsible for demanding a recount in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And we also were involved with the Wisconsin Wave in doing an audit of the Wisconsin recall, where we had independent hand counting of the results in many counties in the state. We're calling for people to sign a pledge of action. You can sign this pledge on our website. Many prominent people have already signed. We put up the pledge this time around last week, and we've already had 10,000 people commit to take action if the election is stolen in the United States. We're also asking people to organize voter assemblies in their communities, and we have very nice software that you can use on our website to do that. At the voter assembly, voters get together and they talk about their election experience, any problems they faced, and it's also an organizing tool to support voters in other states, and also to build a movement for hand-counted paper ballots nationally. And if you encounter any election fraud on election day, we want people to immediately report it on our website, what you saw, where it was, and we have software that allows you to do that. So the website is nomorestolenelections.org, and we ask everyone to go there right now and sign the pledge and organize a voter assembly in your community.
Thank you very much. Clint Curtis.
Yes.
Yes, give him the mic.
Oh yeah, take the mic, please.
Oh.
I want to point out that Clint was testified in Columbus, Ohio, after the 2004 election, and has been do you need to move that over? Okay. Clint has been one of the very few highly qualified people to risk his career to come forward as a whistleblower on election protection issues as they relate to electronic voting. So we're grateful for you, Cliff, and if you can give us a rundown on what's possible and not possible in this coming election, we appreciate it.
Okay, like I said, I'm Clint Curtis, and basically if it's a computer program, everything is possible. Absolutely everything, because you control the code, you control the universe. You can make somebody win who has no vote at all, and you can make somebody who has 1,000 votes completely disappear. It's simple to do. It's math. Basically, back in 2000, I was a computer programmer, and Congressman Tom Feeney became a congressman. He was then Speaker of the Florida House, and he'd just been Jeb Bush's running mate when he ran for governor the first time. And he requested a software program that would go on electronic voting machines that would allow someone to come up, hit a few hidden spots on the screen, and make the votes flip and cascade down. Easy to do, right? I assumed at the time he wanted to basically make sure that didn't happen. So I wrote the program and how you stop it. And then the head of the company said, well, we're not really interested in how you stop it. We're more interested in how you do it. And handed it off to him. I was surprised, you know, because I'm thinking, well, who's going to let the opposition party put software on the machines and then let them judge the elections without any way of checking it? Lo and behold, that would be the Democrats. And they allowed that to happen in the Help America Vote Act, which was more really Vote for America Act. And that's what turned out, basically. I'll show you what I wrote for them, if that's any indication. Here we have this little thing. I don't know if you can see the numbers on there, but we have cat as a Democrat, dog as a Republican, and pony as the Green Party. And you can see the votes down here. Cat is winning by, what is that? Looks like about 1 million votes. But if you know where to go up and to hit the right spot, without ever having to do anything, you will now see that dog is now winning. The Republican just flipped that quick. So it doesn't take anything at all. It's a matter of where you put the code, where you hide it. There's a million ways to do it. You can do it with scanned paper ballots as easily as you can do it with the touchscreens. The only thing is with the scanned ballots, you then have paper you can count. Which sounds good, except states like Florida then outlawed the ability to recount those ballots. Why would you do that? Who knows, but that's what's going on. So this is what can be done, and it can be done very simply. So to allow that to happen without any method of verification, you've basically given it away. And the only way to counter it, if you just want to believe the machines, is to get so many numbers going in your favor that the flip becomes obvious. There's a lot of people said, Romney now has these machines in his pocket and these people. Well, that's true, but he's also behind in every swing state by 2 or 3 points. So I think that if he actually did the miraculous win, it's going to be really obvious how that happened, because one poll could be bad within margin of error, maybe even 2. All of them are not going to be bad. You can't pull all of those out at the same time without somebody going, The question is, what can you do about it after the fact, because it's already happened? And if you can't see the ballots, although hopefully we can, and if you can't see the machines where the votes are invisible completely because there is no way to verify, there's no way to reconstruct it unless you go door to door and ask the voters how they voted and then compare that to the tally that came out of the machine. A very extensive job, but it could be done.
We will come back to you, please. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for Cliff. Lori Grace, please.
I wanted to let you know that California is more or less a paper ballot state, but there are problems even with paper ballots, which is what Clint brought up, which is being able to access the paper ballots after the vote has occurred. And I wanted to let you know that Proposition 8, which was permitting, it was saying that gays don't have the right to marry, actually lost in won in California. And I was involved in the study of actually exit polls, differences between exit polls and vote totals in 2008 regarding Proposition 8. And there were 12 to 14% differences between the exit polls and the vote totals, as was Election Defense Alliance, was another organization. And we tried to bring this to the attention of the Fraud Department of the Secretary of State and to the Secretary of State ourselves, and we weren't really able to get any traction. So what I've ended up doing is, at the advice of Eva Waskell, who's been involved for 20 years in election security issues, was getting involved with supporting the Trachtenberg election verification system, which is an open source way of counting ballots. And I want you to know there's only one county in the entire United States that actually counts votes a second time with an open source system. Now, open source means that everybody can look at the ballots and how they're counted, and that means all the ballots in Humboldt County, California, are run through a scanner a second time, a scanner that's not connected with Hardinger Civic, which is the company that's used there, and then the vote totals from the second time are compared with the first time. And since the first time they used it, when Diebold was being used at Humboldt County, and they showed a big discrepancy of about 300 votes, Diebold terminated their relationship with Humboldt County in a hurry, and with a sense of arrogance, I would have to say. And Carolyn Cernich went on to pick out the Humboldt system. Now, one thing I wanted to let you know is it's not very popular to I find with both secretaries of state and registrars, they don't look like something bad has possibly happened on their watch. So I set up this institute to also award awards for excellence in supporting election integrity on the part of registrars and secretaries of state. And we did deliver a excellence award to Carolyn Cernich and to Tom Stanionis of Yolo County in California in 2010. And I just want to tell you, I was in so much mystery for so long about how the media would not bring out, certainly mainstream media, bring out issues around election integrity to the general public. And I couldn't understand it. I was sort of an idealist when I began back in 2004, but I developed a simple little model that comes from following the money, which I can say in 2 minutes or one. And that is that if I'm a political candidate and I'm wanting you to vote, I certainly don't want to think or support the idea of fraud, because then you'll feel your efforts were wasted, okay? If I'm a political candidate and I want you to write a nice check for my campaign, how much money can I raise for you if you think that that your money is going to be kind of thrown in the toilet, and because of the possibility of election fraud? Then if I'm a television or a news station or radio station and I look like I'm presenting something about fraud as a possibility, how can I get the money from the Democrat and Republican parties and other organizations supporting candidates, PACs, and different things like that? Because I look like I would be supporting something that that would make their money look poorly placed. Okay, and then, as I mentioned to you. Well, the other thing is the exit poll companies are hired every other year. Matovsky has been hired every other year by the Media Consortium, and they get a lot of money for what they're doing. And what happened in 2004 is their raw data showed that Kerry won, and then there was this whole questioning of the exit polls at that time that Republicans were less likely to come to an exit poll or to answer the truth of the exit poll, and this sort of thing, and basically the Republican Party dissed exit polls. So where exit polls are the gold standard of truth in many, many other countries, in our country they're not, and now we only have exit polls in the 19 swing states as of this year. So what happens now is the raw data is considered proprietary, and then we look at the vote totals, which can be affected electronically, and then the raw data is massaged to meet the vote totals. So this is, in my view, a problem. And independent exit polls are seen as biased in attracting certain people and not other people to answer, or framing the question in some way, and then those are dismissed too. So, and then I mentioned to you about registrars and secretaries of state wanting to look good and not really being very comfortable with showing that problems, either mistakes or fraud, could possibly happen. I do want to let you know something really refreshing. And that is when Carolyn Cernich in Humboldt County, California, decided to adopt this Trachtenberg system where you count votes a second time, what happened was, first of all, people would come up to her in the street and say, "Thank you so much for supporting our vote and for supporting election integrity." And she was voted the most popular elected official in Humboldt County. She has been voted that over and over again. Additionally, I want you to know that she's had 0 requests for recounts since she's adopted this system with a second counting of votes. So this creates greater economy and ease. And then another thing that happens is that if you look at the voter turnout in her county, it's about double what it is in other counties in California. So I consider this remarkable because she has taken a real step to create voter trust, and anybody can count the ballots in that place, and if it's put on a CD, then the Republicans get one, the Green Party gets one, the Democrats, everybody can look at it. So I'm excited about promoting the system, and it may be a possible solution. You know, I mean, I definitely believe in hand-counted paper ballots, and I'd love to see them. But being that we have 10 million votes counted, for example, on hard intercivic optic scans this year, you know, we may want to use this system to do some recounting. And also, let's take a moment to look at really finding a way to celebrate secretaries of state and registrars who take a stand for integrity, and to realize that we can evoke voter trust, voter popularity. I mean, there's so many people that don't want to vote this year because they have lost trust. Let's restart trust. And whether it's a Trachtenberg system or hand recounts, I'd love to see it because I'd love to see our democracy flourish.
Thank you, Lori.